Plan Commission to order, Monday, January 23rd, 2023. Doug, would you like to call the roll?
Chair Moore,
Here?
Alder Holmquist,
Here.
Mr. Conrad,
Here.
Mr. Grice,
Here.
Ms. Fallett,
Here.
Mr. Homburg,
Here.
Mr. Stein,
Here.
and Ms. Fox.
Ms. Fox is not here,
Okay,
unless
thank
she's
you.
online. Don't see her. I do not see Ms. Fox tonight. Okay, thank you. I'd like a motion to approve the minutes from December 12th, 2022.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
A motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any changes, corrections? Seeing none, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Minutes carry. Number 4 is order of business. I'm going to suggest 2 changes tonight unless there's objections. The first is that I'd like to take the White Horse properties. It would be number E and F under new business first, in the interest of not keeping Strand and our engineers here all night. And then we'll move to consideration of a sign from Empire Nutrition second, and then we'll go to the rest of the agenda. Does that work for people? Okay. Thank you. Any appearances this evening? Again, if you're here to appear, which is to say make a statement, you need to fill out a little form here in the front of the room. Okay. Is there anybody here online that is here to appear that's not on an item on the agenda this evening for a public hearing? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the appearance section and move to, as I said, we'll move to number 7E, which is a public hearing on the request by White Horse Properties LLC, represented by Schneider and Associates, for approval of zoning permit for a new private drive for a previously approved CSM 16430, located approximately 1208 East Broadway, case number 2-002-2023. Go ahead, this is the public hearing. And again, on White Horse Properties. Anybody here to speak on? Doug, are you aware of anybody that's here to speak during the public hearing on this?
I didn't receive any public comments. I see Brian Arkand, who I believe was working, yes, is the engineer of record on this. Would you be able to just give a brief introduction to the application, Brian?
Sure. I need to share my screen at all, or just kind of run through the...
I think that would be helpful. I'll make you co-host. Thanks.
Can everyone see this?
Not quite yet. It's a black screen, but we can see. There you go. Now we see it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So the project is located off of Broadway Avenue, west of Highway 51, near the existing Shell gas station. It is for the private drive that will serve 4 lots of an existing CSM that was recorded in 2019, I believe, which is being spurred by a development for Lot 1. So the conditional approval of the CSM required the construction of the private drive when the first lot will be developed. So I'm representing White Horses, who will be constructing the private drive for this development on Lot 1. Stormwater for the private drive will be in a proposed bow retention basin on Lot 1 and will be combined with the stormwater for Lot 1, which is being designed by Veer Bicker and Associates. At this time, we had proposed public sanitary and water main, since this was serving multiple lots. But I see there was comments from Public Works. It looks like it was discussed, so Snyder and Associates weren't involved with the original CSM. So I wasn't aware that it had already been discussed that the city would prefer that these utilities be private. So we will head in that direction then. So there will be, but we do plan on extending laterals to Lot 4, Lot 3. We do not show laterals being extended to Lot 2. The intention was that the mains will be extended since we have no idea what kind of development is going to happen on Lot 2. And then we do show multiple laterals to Lot 1, which I saw in the engineering comments. Those were coordinated directly with Veer Bicker. So that's why there's more than one lateral going to those lots. Our original design, the intent was, I guess, not to affect the gas station here. And Lot 4 is currently there's a potential buyer for Lot 4 who's working with a separate engineer on their layout. And we tried to coordinate with them for stormwater management and grades and design, sidewalk location, that kind of thing. But they are still in the preliminary concept phase and weren't really, we just didn't really get anywhere with them as far as, putting a pond. We did look at stormwater, sorry, I'm kind of all over the place here. We did look at stormwater for the entire CSM at one point also, where we were showing a basin on Lot 3, but this same developer is looking at Lot 4 and Lot 3, and they didn't want to be locked into a pond location, which backed us off that and went back to looking at just Lot 1 since that's being developed, taking care of the roadway. Now, I did see the conditional approval of the CSM included some geometrics. And I sent Doug an email regarding a 14-foot southbound lane, 2 11-foot northbound lanes, and a 3-foot median. So we were looking at that this morning as well. I guess the main issue with that is it will require some coordination with the gas station and kind of either tearing up a portion of their parking lot or adding an inlet over there. So we'll have to reach out to them for some coordination issues on that.
Okay. Anything else?
I believe that is it. I'm trying to see if I'm missing any other critical information here. No, is there any questions I can answer?
Well, we'll wait for I'm sure we will have questions, but we'll wait for the consideration of action before we get to those.
Okay.
And, so, is there anyone else here, again, that's here to speak on this during the public hearing portion? Okay, then we're going to close the public hearing. And we will go to 7F, which is consideration of action on the request by White Horse Properties LLC, represented by Schneider and Associates, Inc., for approval of a zoning permit for a new private drive for the previously approved CSM 16430, located approximately 1208 East Broadway, case number 2-002-2023. Doug, would you like to?
Yes, thank you. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. So this request is to construct a 50-foot private drive into the White Horse Properties, allowing for access to proposed sites from East Broadway. The parcels are zoned Community Design District, and a zoning permit is needed for the construction of the roadway that is proposed. The location and overall design was captured during the CSM process, where this private drive was delineated as Outlot 1, with final designs and engineering before you tonight. The staff report included in the meeting packet includes details on the main discussion points, including the design, landscaping, and lighting, as well as feedback from city staff. I particularly highlight feedback from the Public Works Director as it relates to maintenance, utilities, and signage. His preference is that this all remain private and be the responsibility or responsibilities of the property owners and not the city. Specifically, that this be a private drive and not an additional city street. I also wanted to share that this has been posted as a possible consideration of action. The reason behind that, that is the road was discussed during the CSM approvals, and this must be considered prior to the North Point PIP returning to the Plan Commission. If the Commission needs revisions or more time, this may return for further consideration, possibly at the same meeting, as a consideration of action for North Point. I've included a suggested approval in the staff report with conditions of approval if you feel that's appropriate. And additionally, tonight we're joined by Josh Straka from Strand. They provided the review letter you'll find in your meeting packet, and he's here to answer any detailed engineering questions you may have. Thanks.
Thank you, Doug. Chris, would you like to start us off?
Sure. It's clear you weren't given the copy of the approval from when we approved the 50-foot private road, because there was a plan that showed how we were
You
going.
can't hear online, you can't hear, it seems like you're muted.
Awesome. Hello, test 1, 2, 3. Hold on.
The media seems muted overall, so I don't think it's it might not be your mic, it might be the media.
How about now?
Yeah, we're still struggling to
Oh,
hear.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Is our room muted on the media?
Can we,
I don't know.
There we go. That's working for me.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you still hear me? Hello?
I can hear you, Chris.
You can still hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, so apparently you weren't given the approval from when that 50-foot road was approved, because we spent a lot of time looking at what the configuration would be at the gas station. Of course, our concern was with what's being built behind there plus what's to come. There was going to be a lot of traffic, and we certainly didn't want, for example, that angle parking backing up against the flow of traffic into the road. So Josh, this is probably new to you, and I suspect you've seen this drawing, but it was our best effort to try to be sensitive to the gas station but still have a fairly safe roadway there. We did talk to everybody, and what we ended up with was those 2 angle stalls could work for some employee parking or something like that. They're certainly not good for visitors. But there's quite a bit to figure out down there. Right now, all the water from the gas station comes across, would flow from east to west across this and have to get into that culvert pipe, which I know in your review you said there should be storm sewer. I 100% agree. But there's a lot to figure out down in that intersection. I think it would be premature to approve this tonight without seeing all that detail. In addition, there is a lot of information on the Strand review that needs to be looked at. I don't think it would slow down North Point really, because I don't see any reason why we couldn't review it and approve it on the same meeting. We've done that numerous times in the past for other things, and I'm not trying to slow this down, but there's a lot of, I mean, almost half of that road flows to the north, and right now it's just, well, it's going to get into that catch basin or pipe and go. How are we treating water quality? Are you aware at all, Josh?
No. We were, kind of like Brian said, we were kind of waiting to see, in our letter, we didn't get any stormwater side of things, so we were, hinging that, lot 1 or one of these lots is going to take a majority of that. But like you said, half of that road's draining back towards, East Broadway, and just trying to understand how that all works out with lot 4 or something else. A little more information, I agree with you, would be needed
Okay.
at some point here.
And the reason I bring that up is they could always overcompensate on Lot 1, but I can't imagine the owners of Lot 1 want to take care of the water quality for that whole road. I think the half of it is more than their share. So I would, and that's something between the owners too, and I believe the people that are putting this road in own Lot 4, correct? Or not?
Yes.
Okay, so to have some of that water taken care of on Lot 4 for the road they're putting in seems like a reasonable request. And certainly, there could be a preliminary pond that would do the work and then drain off into that existing pipe. I assume there was snow there, I didn't kick it off, but it's a pipe that gets into our storm sewer system. And I imagine it could be something fairly rudimentary for now that would just get us our cleaning. And when Lot 4 builds, they might have a different way they want to handle that water, but I would suspect we have to have something for it. What if Lot 4 doesn't build for a year or 2 or 5 or 10? So we have to do something to take care of that water for now instead of just dumping it right in there. And we have no indications of what that would be. So I think we definitely need to see it come back. We need a lot of details at Broadway. That drainage there is going to be a little tricky. The gas station parking lot's low, and somehow we're going to have to get it across this road and into whatever the water quality system is on the west side of the road. Josh, just for interest, we're always open to looking at other things, but we were really worried about that angle parking coming out and trying to cross that traffic. You'd be heading the wrong way as traffic's coming out with all the apartments proposed back there, plus the 3 commercial lots. That tends to be a lot of traffic. So we're trying to be cognizant of that. When you look at our setbacks, we just wanted to at least have some room for people stacking, and we only got room for a car, but that's when we found out that the right-of-way is so far behind the sidewalk, we went to just 8 feet for the gas station. That was working with the gas station, and that island that's shown there might not be any more than just a raised piece of concrete that just kind of gives a lane alignment, because we understand that the tanker is going to come in and have to go at an angle across that to fill the tanks at the gas station. So this was a preliminary thing. Obviously, we didn't want that curb going out in that drive apron. So it would just be a short one there, but just something to keep the traffic separated and allow a separate left and right turn out of here, because we anticipate a lot of traffic, 14 foot in. And I believe, I didn't scale this one, but I believe it's about a 40-foot drive apron, so there's plenty of room to get all this accomplished. Potentially, the sidewalk would have to veer out a little bit onto Lot 4, but that's who's putting the road in. A 50-foot right-of-way is pretty narrow for a street, so by the time we get all this in, it might be a little sidewalk on Lot 4 instead of the 50 feet, but I doubt it would be a lot. So I hope that helps you when you're looking at what you're reviewing.
Yeah, we caught that late. Doug sent that over to us, Chris, and I agree. And we kind of put something in our letter about,
Okay.
Following those same kind of recommendations. 14 foot in, I saw that kind of little median separation, a couple 11-foot turn lanes out. I kind of thought the same thing as you, as it would probably be some sort of even like a corrugated concrete median of something that even the trucks could drive over, but it gave a little separation to some degree. So I agree. And I think, Brian, you kind of mentioned that you saw that kind of late in the game here too, and we're looking at it today, probably trying to figure out how you're going to get that to work. I also share some same concerns that Chris has with just drainage down there, and I know you're kind of struggling to get it to work, but it'd be nice if we could work with Lot 4 and get some grading done or get something solved, so we wouldn't have to basically have some curb cuts, drain through the curb cuts when it appears, and then through a sidewalk flume over to that small little catch base. And obviously it's not ideal. So
I have not seen Biervicker's report with Lot 1 included with the roadway. I know when I did a stormwater design for all 4 lots and the outlot, I was able, like Chris mentioned, to offset to let kind of the north portion of the roadway not be captured and still meet all the requirements, so I guess I'm under the assumption they were able to do that with their Lot 1 design as well, but Justin never sent me his final report. I was kind of under the impression they were going to be on the same agenda as us right now, but maybe they're waiting to see if this got approved first.
Okay.
Quick question for the group. Is this a 40% then, because it's considered a redevelopment? Is that what everybody's classifying this as?
I believe that's what we were looking at after talking with Darren Pope. Yes.
Okay.
Well, but if Darren's designing it, then Josh, you'd be reviewing it.
Yeah.
I think most of that area is gravelled back there. It has been used for a lot of different things, so I think that'd be reasonable to say it's a redevelopment. But we'll need to make sure that the owners of Lot 1 are aware that they're taking care of all the stormwater for the road, which is fine. If they
Yep.
compensate somewhere, I don't think that matters to us as a city, but they would need to know. And
Yeah, they're aware of that.
They are aware of it.
you're aware,
Yeah,
and that you're taking all the water.
yes, they're well, it was their suggestion,
Okay, who are you with?
with the White Horse property.
Okay, great, terrific.
Yeah, they're aware of it, and it was actually their suggestion.
Okay, all right, so we got that, Josh, out of the way. So then all we got to do on the bottom end is make sure we handle that drainage for now. Our bottom end, I mean north end, but it's the bottom of the flow. Okay?
Yeah.
And then the other comments I would have, you should really, I was going to say you should look at the traffic, and your asphalt thickness might be a little light, but you got 18 inches of rock, so that probably takes care of it then. Sidewalks should be 5 inches instead of 4. They won't last at 4. And we should look at terrace trees and some type of lighting. And that's it for me. I think the biggest thing is that area where everybody gets together, where the C-store is, to figure out what's happening there exactly.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Brendan?
I don't have any additional comments.
You don't have any additional comments?
No.
Brian?
No. Besides the engineering report, the only other thing was the trees and lighting before approval.
Okay. Okay. Rob?
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add, other than it seems to need a little more clarification on a couple of items and coordination. Trees and lighting.
Great. Chris, number 2?
I have nothing to add. Sounds like we got a lot to do still.
Okay. Corey?
Nothing to add.
Okay. Great. So, I think what I'm hearing is that the proposal needs to come back.
I don't think it'll slow down Northport.
No.
North Point, I mean, I'm
Yes.
sorry. I think we can have it at the same hearing. It's just, there's a lot of detail, and to craft something right now without some of that detail would be really difficult. And we need a record of what we're doing and make sure we have a chance to review it and everything's going to work.
Right. Okay.
Only have one sort of thought. It is a private drive. There was an attempt to dedicate it to the city, but they wanted to keep it private. But I just want to make sure everybody's aware.
Yeah, for people that couldn't hear, the owner of the property has said it was a private drive. I want to make sure everybody's aware of that. We are, and honestly, the private drive is not a decision of the Plan Commission. That would be Public Works. And Public Works went through it, and they said they don't want to take it over as a road. And private utilities, I don't know what kind of ability you'd have to go back and try to talk them into it, but,
No, we're not.
okay, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're aware, but like, and trees are cheap, but when I say trees and stuff, anything that's built, if that was a private drive going into a private building and we had something like that with sidewalks, we'd still ask for some trees and look at, make sure it's just safe around there as far as lighting goes.
I do have one other thing. I think it was in the, I can't remember where I read it, but there was the recommendation to have some way to turn around as well.
Yes.
As a temporary turnaround. So I guess that would be something to consider as well as part of the details.
Yeah, Chris?
If I could, and that's a standard detail, is Public Works, we ask for that for our snowplows to turn around. But if it's a private drive and they're maintaining it privately,
Right.
we look at where snow can be stacked and such, but we don't, like, make them put a cul-de-sac in if they're comfortable, whoever takes care of the snow. I don't know who's going to take care of the snow there. If it's,
And the CSM was approved.
would it be okay to sit up by one of those mics?
Yeah,
Because
sorry.
we do have a number of people on Zoom.
That's all right.
The CSM approved it as a stop of that, it's a square stop because it is a private drive. That was discussed
Right.
at the CSM approval,
Right.
not to turn that into a quarter. So once a dead ends, it dead ends into a property, and then that property will have property. But most of the turnaround involved in this will be automobiles.
Right, and
Not heavy trucks or semis or
Right.
even box trucks.
Right.
And we understand that since Beerbecker is the engineer, We have a new engineer, Strand, working at it, so this is the first time they've really looked at it. So when they look at something like that for us, they'll say, well, where can a snowplow turn around, all these things. They're suggestions that we take into account and talk with you about.
Yeah, so there will be a joint driveway
Yeah.
maintenance agreement with all the parties to have that plowed, so.
Yeah.
So some of it will be dealt with either sometimes hauled away, sometimes. So,
And as long as you're comfortable being able to take care of it, that's
we are.
private property. Okay,
perfect.
Terrific.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
We don't need a table or anything like that, correct? No.
Well, that's an excellent question. Many times we have when it was noticed for action. And I know Doug put it on for action just in case we felt we wanted to take an action. But in the past, when it says, how was it worded?
Consideration of action. It doesn't say possible consideration of action.
So for possible, that doesn't mean it's going to
Right,
happen.
so I think they're all possible considerations of action, right? So, why don't I take a motion to
Move the table.
Move to, and a second? Second. I have a second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are tabled, thank you. We look forward to having you back.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we're going to move to item number 7A, public hearing on the request by Empire Nutrition LLC for approval of a new wall sign at 607B Monona Drive, case number S-001-2023. Welcome.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm great.
Floor is yours to say whatever you'd like to about your sign during the public hearing section.
Okay. So I've been open for 2 years, so finally I've been able to supply a sign to my business. It's a Lunalite 7x3 flat board sign. My property management will be putting that up for me as soon as you guys approve it.
Great. Anybody else here to speak on this sign? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing section and move to number 7B, consideration of action on request by Empire Nutrition LLC for approval of a new wall sign at 607B Monona Drive, case number S-001-2023. Doug?
Thank you. So this is a wall sign request for Empire Nutrition. The property at 6007B Monona Drive is zoned retail business and also along Monona Drive, so subject to the urban design guidelines. The plans call for a non-illuminated 3 foot by 7 foot, 21 square foot wall sign constructed of illuminite, and a little bit more detail of that is included in the staff report. This is a material that I'm not as familiar with, and I don't think we've seen many applications come through with. So the commission may choose to just ask a little bit or discuss the possible durability of this moving into the future, while also balancing the needs of a small business to have some additional wall signage. As far as the other dimensional standards, the frontage of the property was field verified at 25 feet. So the sign does comply with the area standards, and landlord approval was also included in the meeting packet. With that, staff recommends approval with one condition of approval, as listed in the staff report. Thanks.
Thank you, Doug. We'll start at this end. Corey?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the Illumilite, and I guess what can you tell us about how that's going to withstand the elements?
So it is like a metal material, so it is weatherproof. As far as I think the concern with my property management was how we were going to install it. So I don't know much about signs. Budget Signs said that they make these quite a bit for outdoor signage for people. They back the material and everything on that. We are going to build a treated wooded frame on the back where my property manager is going to paint, so that's sealed as well, because it's going to be There's some electrical work up there for the other signs too, so it's got to come off the board, and it's also going to be a space and spaced so that snow and everything can go through that. And it's going to be put up with galvanized bolts and rubber spacers. So
Okay. So, but the sign company.
the sign itself, I would have to look up what aluminite material is.
We said they have a guarantee on it or
Yeah.
some kind of, so what did did they give you that guarantee for how long it would last?
No,
Okay.
it might be included in the paperwork, maybe more from what Budget Signs gave me, but off the top of my head, I can't say that I know.
Okay. All right. I don't really have any other questions other than that. Just, looking at the staff report was just had questions about the durability of the sign, so I feel better knowing that the company backs it.
Right. Right. Chris?
Looks good to me. A couple of questions. There was something in the staff report about adding some edging to it to improve durability. I don't know if that was going to be part of the plan.
That is what, so my maintenance man or guy or whatever said that he would need to build that frame to just make sure that it's not blowing in the wind, because it is just a flat, maybe like 2 or 3 millimeter board sign. So the wind would be the most concerning part. So that's why he's building that frame.
Okay. My other comment was the actual sign design itself. I Googled it just to see if that was indeed like the logo.
It's
and I
not.
saw some other ones. Is there a reason you didn't go with like the
My
font
logo?
and text-style with the actual logo?
Did you see the skyline?
It's got a stylized lettering and
Yeah, just,
it's more attractive to me.
How it
personally.
is right now, or the
No,
logo?
The corporate logo.
I did that because I feel like my logo is very hard it would be very hard to see from the road. My intention is to bring traffic from, people driving by Monona Drive. And I just want it to stand out rather than, and I do have my logo on my door, and I do have a banner in my window too, so the reason for that is just visual, attraction.
Yeah, that was my one comment. And then just durability. I guess I have some concerns about durability and the conditions of approval. I would definitely agree with staff comments on that about should this become deteriorated. Is there any plans for lighting it at all?
No.
Okay. Okay, that's all my comments.
Thank you. Brian?
I agree with some of the previous comments. Durability, you're the owner of the sign. You
Yeah.
want it to last.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
I'm glad to hear that you've started to inquire about how to mount it to help with the lasting of the sign, and I think it's a nice entry point for a sign.
Yeah.
And I know signs can get very expensive very, very quickly, so I don't have any other concerns beyond what's been shared.
Brandon?
I don't have any comments or concerns. I think you're the most motivated person to make sure that the sign lasts, so
Yeah.
if you feel good about it, I feel good about it.
Welcome, Susan.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to what's already been said. I think it makes sense not to have a list of giving you hours that you're finished at 2 o'clock. That makes sense to me. And I also agree with your comment in terms of the readability from the road. I think that font is better, so
Thank you.
nothing to add.
Chris?
Brittany, I'm so glad she started on the other end, because clearly it's okay with everybody else. I've been there.
Yeah.
I've told you since day one, you need better signage.
Yep.
Nobody knows you're back there. You absolutely need good signage. For me, this is the only sign on the whole building that doesn't have the main field as individual letters, and it's a little too big. So it's not the sign I would like, but I'm glad everybody else went first, because I don't think it matches anything on the building. Even the banner sign you have in your window lately on the bottom, that's readable from Monona Drive, and that's great.
Is that the one?
The one that
with my
looks
logo?
just like this. You got one in your window that looks just like this.
Yeah.
And it's readable from Monona Drive. So I would rather see the individual letters, and I know you can't afford it. I know it's tough getting a business started, but whoever's going to make the motion, is there any way this could be a little smaller? I know it wouldn't cover up all the things on the building, but we look at it next to
I
the
think that is it's not going to look that big.
It looks big on what we've been handed for the materials we have. So
Yeah.
whoever decides to make the motion, it'd be nice if it matches the size of the other, like the SWAT
To
or
scale or
something like that, yeah. Because when you look at yours in your window, it's readable from Monona Drive.
That is the one.
And that's the sign? Oh, it's already made?
Yep.
Oh, well, that's, okay, for anybody looking, this is the sign that's shown in our packet.
Chris.
That sign fits just right in there, in between those two window tiles. The one that she's talking about is right down in here. So this sign that we're looking at is probably shown 14 feet long instead of 7.
Yeah.
And that would be a lot more appropriate
Yeah,
on that
would-
space,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Perfect
So-
sense.
So that's good, because that one is readable from Monona Drive, and you desperately need signage. People need to know you're there, you've got a good product.
Yeah, I mean, I've been there for 2 years, so I think this is the piece of the puzzle that's really gonna
Yeah.
turn
Okay.
it. And, I was talking to, I work at Buck and Honey's too.
Pardon?
So I work at Buck and Honey, so I work a lot with their marketing place. And she's like, you have 10,000 people driving down Monona
Right.
Drive, and you can't get any of them to come in.
And nobody knows you're there.
Yeah. So, or people do know of me, they just can't find me.
Yeah.
So, yep, this is it.
Okay. Thanks.
Great. I just want to say that I think it's awesome that you're having your 2-year anniversary. I remember when you came in front of us 2 years ago. I'm super excited for you.
Thank you.
That it's gone well for you. So, with that, I will take a motion. Do I have a motion?
Do you want me to, I can look up like what the material is and give you some information right now, or I can get something from?
No. I'll just make the motion with the condition of approval as written by staff, which is if the sign is deemed to be deteriorated, then we might require you to return with a replacement.
Yeah.
Great. I have a motion,
Second.
and I have a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Susan?
Well, I'm just wondering whether we should add a condition about the size. I mean, if the size be more to scale with the signs on either side, or
I don't, what we're shown isn't representative of
Okay,
what
so
that will
you're
be.
thinking
I
the
think,
actual
I don't think the
measurements
sign
indicate
of
that'll be fine. Okay.
3 by 7 is going to
Yeah,
be too
okay.
large.
Yeah, I mean, in the
The picture's deceiving, I think.
right.
Yeah.
It is. Okay. Then I'm okay.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries.
We'll talk about this when you come see me again.
I suppose it'll cost me double now.
You're good, thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, have a good evening. Okay, well, now we're going to go back up to number 6, number 6A specifically. Public hearing for the neutral project Encompass Properties on the request for consideration of a precise implementation plan, PIP, for the site located at approximately 4601, 4711 Monona Drive between Springhaven and Boone Avenue for a mixed-use development, case number 2-016-2021. Welcome.
Hi. You guys are on. I'll let them take it over.
Okay.
I'm Dylan.
Yes. Welcome. Whoever wants to start, the floor is yours. If it's Nate or whoever it is that wants to. Hello.
Chair, is it possible for me to share my screen?
Yeah, Doug will. Yeah, hey Nate. Yeah, Doug will take care of that for you in a minute. You should be able to do that momentarily.
Okay, perfect.
Your co-host, so you should be able to share now, Nate.
Oh, brilliant. Yep. Okay. Well, thank you for having us back. We're not here for any approvals tonight. We've been going through design iterations of a few items that we wanted to present to Plan Commission and have the commission opine on a few design-related matters, and then also some landscaping and light selections. And so really we're focusing on those 3 items tonight and really nothing else. And then when we come back, we'll have a more solidified design that hopefully aligns with the commission's expectations and be able to proceed quite smoothly. So I'll get into the presentation and then I'll call out a few team members along the way, which the first one I'm going to call out is JT Engineering to present, or I'm sorry, not JT Engineering, Jeanette from Silvernail is going to be presenting her landscape plan and planting schedule. As we know, this was one of the items on the last meeting that was kind of a point of discussion where we didn't have all the answers. So we wanted to come back with a more formalized plan and present to the commission and get your opinion. So I'll turn it over to Jeanette.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Nate. I will just run through some highlights of this, focusing on the areas that you asked us to consider at the last November meeting, and any other changes that came about from the architectural or site civil revisions. So we have added a dog run area right here. Can you all see my cursor?
Not very well.
It's up on the.
No, we
Oh,
can't.
yeah.
No, because I'm not sharing, duh.
Oh, it does.
So Nate, you get to point it out, yeah. Thanks. Forget whose screen it is. Okay, so the dog run would be an artificial turf material, and we'd have a drain that would it would drain below ground to that rain garden in the garden space. So that'll be integrated with the civil design. Off the dog run area, right off of that, there's a smaller rectangle that refers to the garden shed, just to the right of that with the X over it. Yeah. So that would be a small storage building for residents or community gardeners' tools, maybe a grill. And then just to the left of the shed, the additional rectangle between the shed and the garden beds is a multi-use platform. So that's a wood decking material again that we use in the plaza area, and that could be, we envision like for bistro tables or a picnic table, and or they could be pulled aside and have a little yoga activity or fitness activity out there on the platform. And it just kind of visually ties the garden beds over to the garden shed, and then lawn stretching on either side of that. At least the first garden bed is raised for accessibility, and then the path all around the garden beds is a crushed limestone that would be crushed and compacted for ADA accessibility as well. I think that covers the garden area, other than we've spec'd out pear trees for the espalier and the conifers as spruce and juniper in that back corner. Moving down to the east from there, in front of along Spring Haven, those are now some dwelling unit walk-ups, and so we've added some landscaping and privacy hedge in front of those. And then further east on Monona Drive, there was a suggestion about the size of those bioswales there in front of the building. And so that made a lot of sense. They were way oversized for just the swale. And so we've set the swales 10 feet away from the building and added some, just the two to the north. Yeah. The other, yep, there. And then added some woody plant material, honey locust and maple and, oh, what else do we have in there? I think service berries. And some small shrubs around them. So some decorative landscaping, but still native plant material. So that also adds a vertical structure right along the face of the building and between the swales and the building. Let's see, in the plaza area, by request, we added more ornamental canopy trees or small canopy trees. Mostly we've added some river birch, multi-stem river birch, and then may have kind of moved those around, moved the serviceberry to different locations and added the river birch along the main swale between the parking and the plaza. But anyway, that whole plaza area then is mostly a mix of river birch and serviceberry. What else? Okay, so, and then the other big thing is along Gordon Avenue is a lot of additional planting for the screening the parking lot from the residences across the street from the residential neighborhood. So the two bigger trees there are existing. If we can keep those, they're in the sidewalk apron between the sidewalk and the street. Yep, and then everything else would be added. So the specific, the trees are called out. Shrub screens are to be selected from the shrub list in the planting schedule below. So we have a list of those that we would choose from. And then also the decorative rainwater collection structures for the townhomes, they would be a mixture of up to 4 vine species, and those would be selected from the list of vines in the planting schedule below. Let's see. I think that's about it. Can you think of anything else, Nate?
No, I think you covered most of it. Once we're done with our presentation, we'll be intrigued to hear the Plan Commission's opinion on our planting schedule, but we'll wait to receive those comments until we're done with our presentation. I think Dylan is in person, and so I will turn it over to Dylan to present his page.
So this is our second crack at the lighting plan. We came with a preliminary lighting plan for our pre-hearing PIP. Basically, the intent here is to meet the code, which is no more than 3-foot candles at the property line, while also providing enough lighting within the parcel for both traffic, vehicular traffic and pedestrian traffic. And then we also worked with our architect here to make sure that we were meeting, their expectations from a lighting standpoint of the entire property. So we've got a mixture of bollard lights, wall packs, sconces, and a few street lights as well to provide the lighting. Outside of that, I don't think there's anything super specific we need to talk about unless you guys have any questions.
Thank you, Dylan. We'll come back to Dylan as well. Then we just have one presentation on the facade, and we had a chance to meet with BMO after the comments we received from the commission in our last meeting, and was able to convey to BMO that a two-story massing and a two-story sign was not acceptable nor compliant with the current code of Monona signage. And so we went back to the drawing board and came up with a new design, which you'll see in your packets and also on the screen here in front of you. But one of the things that BMO stressed to us was they need to have some sort of presence along Monona Drive, and they wanted a differentiator in the facade. And so we thought if we continue the brick and add their blue, then that would be enough for them to have kind of their differentiator in the facade, and hopefully subtle enough for the planning commission to approve this. Obviously, we're not seeking approval tonight, but we will be when we come back for PIP. And so I want to hear the commission's thoughts on this facade. And there's a few more angles that we have just during the different times of day. And then this is a angle right along Monona Drive. And I think we have Salahars here. Doug, are you on?
I'm here, yes.
Oh, perfect. If you want to add any comments, that would be great.
Yeah, I mean, I think the major change is that, you know, with the blue, let's say like the blue being in such contrast to the rest of the building palette and material color, we wanted to turn that inward, let's say on inward facing edges and on, let's say not on the main facade, but rather carved in either to the entry or to the openings, the windows, to not make it such that the facade, let's say, is acting as signage, but rather the materiality of the facade itself blends much more in with the materiality of the rest of the building, and then the signage is simply signage attached to that.
Yeah, I think that's our complete presentation. So thank you for having us, and welcome as many comments as you guys have.
Thank you. As this is a public hearing for the Metro project, is there anyone here that wanted to speak during the public hearing portion? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and move to number 6B, pre-hearing conference.
Doug's trying to speak up.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry to jump in. I did, if I may, as part of the pre-hearing, I did receive an email just before the meeting here relating to this project. Sorry I wasn't able to circulate that with the commission members. May I just kind of give an overview of that?
Sure.
Thank you. So this comes from Marianne Reed of 5602 Winnicott Road. Generally concerned about the lack of planned parking for the developments, specifically referencing this project, the lack of parking at the high school, and the need for off-street parking. The changes that have taken place generally in the city and broader context as well, and then the discussions generally of sort of snow emergencies and how elements like that may be handled. And I can certainly share a copy of that with the commission so they can see it and read it in their own time as well.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Then, again, I will close the public hearing, which was 6A, and go to 6B, the pre-hearing conference for the Neutral Project and Compass Properties on the request for consideration of a precise implementation plan, PIP, for the site located at approximately 4601, 4711 Monona Drive between Springhaven and Dean Avenue for a mixed-use development, case number 2-016-2021. With that, Doug, you want to go ahead?
Thank you. I'll give a little bit of an overview for folks that are online as well, a little bit of background to the project and call out some of the discussion points. So this, the general development plan and the rezoning were both reviewed at the November 14th Plan Commission meeting and subsequently approved on December 5th by the City Council. So the rezoning for the entire block was to change from retail business to community design district, which would allow for the planned community development process and the flexibility that the applicant seeks. As part of the general development plan, there were 2 4-story mixed-use buildings approved with 83 apartment units, 16,000 square feet of ground floor commercial space, as well as a townhome building facing Gordon Avenue. The materials that have been put forward this evening relate to the precise implementation plan and build upon the discussion points that were held at that pre-hearing at the same meeting in November with the Plan Commission. So the first one would be with regard to the BMO Harris with the southeast corner of that with the anchor retail tenant. And so there was feedback specifically about the design and some concerns there. The revised proposal does remove the painted metal facade and extends the grey brick, as you've already heard. Certainly the Commission should discuss how the design fits with their vision for the site, with the larger building, as well as with how it integrates with the urban design guidelines for Monona Drive. Landscaping, there was a detailed plan that was included. Some of the changes have already been highlighted, including the dog run, the shed in the northwest corner. One of the things to make mention of is it is an extensive plan. There's a lot of different plantings that are put forward. Certainly would seek feedback from the applicant tonight, leading into a potential formal hearing for the PIP. One thing that should be included is a scoring table based upon the number of points in attachment 2 of the zoning code. That way it will allow the Commission to reference that versus the number of parking stalls. Recognizing certainly that this is a unique project with a lot of different landscaping elements included, but that will at least allow for some comparison there as well. So that should be included. But they'd be looking, depending on the final number of parking stalls, at about 2,500 points, as well as canopy trees that would be driven by the number of parking stalls that are included. Finally, the lighting plan, again, is referenced by that same, or regulated by that same section of the ordinance. And the full lighting plan was included, shielded LEDs, 147 light fixtures in total across the site, with no light trespass greater than the 3,000 or the foot candles at the property line, with the majority of the lighting being warm toned. And again, certainly if there's any feedback, any suggested edits, the Commission can certainly do that to the applicant. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. So with that, I think I'm gonna start down at this end. Corey.
Well, as far as the gray brick, I am much more pleased with that than what we saw at the last hearing. So I think that seems to be able to meet their needs, but also I think looks nice on the corner of the building there. So I'm pleased to see that. I appreciate the changes to the landscaping as well. I think this is, I liked the other one as well. This seems to have a little bit more, there's more vertical landscaping elements. I think is going to look very nice. I guess my questions were not related to the landscaping, though. In the staff report, there was comments about the change in the unit mix and the decrease in townhouse units and decrease in some of the other units in the apartment building. I guess I was wondering if you could speak to that a little bit tonight.
We still have not solidified those changes yet, and so I don't want to speak to it just because we're still moving things around in the building. One thing I know that will definitely be in our PIP presentation is there will be 2 units along Springhaven on the ground floor. However, we're trying not to have the total unit count change. What's really changing is the interior of the building, now that we're moving farther into design development, is changing just because we're solidifying the core and the elevator and unit layouts and things of that nature.
Okay.
And so don't want to squeeze a ton to unit mix just because it's kind of all in flux right now.
Okay. I don't have specific questions. I mean, we don't have the count for the landscaping points, but I do think that this mix it's going to look really nice.
Chris?
I'm very pleased to see the changes you made. I think in the last meeting I said I hate it. I do not hate this anymore. I think you've come up with a very pragmatic, elegant, more subtle design. And it's appropriate. I mean, I get it. BMO needs to have its presence known. So I think it's a very reasonable compromise. And so I also appreciate, you guys really listen to us. This looks way better. The landscaping looks good. I'm not going to say anything because I see Rob has lots of notes next to me here, and I don't know a lot about landscaping really. The lighting, I went through each of the spec sheets here, and I think they all look really cool.
Cool is that?
Except with respect to temperature, as always, unless I'm mistaken, every single one of these appears to have an adjustable color temperature setting. I hope I'm right about that. So, as always, I would just ask that you keep it on the warmer side. It looks like some of them go really warm. I don't know if you need to go down to 2,700 or even 2,200. That almost starts to get kind of mood lighting, but if you can keep it around 3,000, I think that's much easier on the eyes. I don't think I have any questions. Oh, and I appreciate you, doing the big printouts. That was great too. So, thanks.
Third time's a charm.
Yes.
Yeah, starting with the building, I think it's much better. I think it's a very reasonable compromise, hopefully, between you and BMO, and I hope they're thanking you for fixing their design. I think that looks great. As far as the lighting goes, I agree. I really like the fixtures that have been selected. I think they're very chic, very cool looking. I think they'll look really great. I had one comment in regards to types. I see that there's a lot of bollard lighting, which is a really cool bollard. I love it. Just one consideration to think about is that with that much bollard lighting, and I think it's a one-directional light. For security reasons, I don't think you get as much facial recognition. So there's a safety component with a raised light that you get that splashes light on someone's face, makes people safer. If there's cameras, it allows for recognition and in those situations. So maybe take a look at that. But I do like the light fixtures as they're laid out, or as they were selected. I think that was my only comment on the lighting. As far as landscape goes, I think the landscape palette is really great. It's very, very native heavy, which I like. A couple of things that I would take into consideration is snow removal and placement of landscape, particularly in the dead-end parking lot area. I'm guessing snow removal will get pushed into that southwest corner, potentially in those islands. Maybe it's hauled off. I'm not sure, but just a thought for consideration. On that southeast corner, also, there looks like there is a spruce tree in that corner. I know there's a decent amount of traffic there. I don't know, the sight line, the visibility in that corner might be inhibited as that tree matures. So that's another thing to take a look at. And then my other main comment would be in regards to primarily the eastern portion of the site and where you have all the seed mixes. Or on the north side as well. And maybe you can explain how this is going to get integrated. So it's a swale, and it's two different seed mixes right next to each other, and one seed mix is no more than a couple of feet wide. And essentially what I'm saying is that when you apply a seed mixture, it's not a defined line so easily. And also looking at being familiar with some of these seed mixes, which I think are great, and it creates a great palette. You do have some larger species in there. Compass plant, aster. There's a few of them in there. So, and they're all planted right up to the concrete, to the sidewalk lines, which can become an issue if they start flopping over. For instance, compass plant can get 5 to 10 feet tall. And that can become kind of a maintenance issue. So I don't know if there is a maintenance area that's turf, or I'm not sure how you want to address that, but it's a comment for consideration, just so you don't have flopping prairie mixes going into your walking paths. But that said, I still think it's an ambitious landscape plan that is super native heavy and will look really cool after its establishment period, which will be heavier maintenance for that first couple of years until you get those natives. Because also with it being a seeding mix versus a plug planting, is that it will not mature until probably its third year and really give you that payoff, at least with all of the desired landscape selection. So those are my comments.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Brian?
Yeah, I will start with, I'll go in the order. So landscaping, I thought looked wonderful, and I'm glad Rob went before me because I don't need to add anything. The shed, I would want to see a little bit of the design of the shed and how it's tying in with the building. Typically, when we have a shed on a property, we're asking for similar materials, so there might be some additional components that we would want to see regarding the shed. Lighting looks good. The BMO building aspect, I wholeheartedly agree. The brick is much better than the blue. And I have a few questions. The first question has to do with this brick band seems to be covering up half of the windows of the second story apartments. Could you clarify how that piece is interacting?
For sure. Oh, you want me to go, Nate, or you want to go?
Oh, go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, that's basically it's acting as a balustrade for those apartments to have balcony on top of the bump out of the BMO. So it's really just continuing up to the height of what a balustrade would be for all of those apartments that would be on that corner.
And just to clarify that point, it's just a code required, basically, balustrade or parapet wall, and those would be big sliding glass doors in the kitchen that people will be able to walk out and have some more outdoor space.
Okay, that helps a ton. And then, although I think the brick matches and does a much better job, and my guess is this was part of the negotiation on how to look at this corner of having all of the returns with that intense blue. I definitely can understand how that would make sense at the entryway at the corner. On every window facade, how much depth are we talking on those returns?
I mean, it's going to depend, of course, on the facade construction. We're thinking maybe 1 foot max.
It
Probably
does.
probably more like 8 or 9 inches.
Yeah, it looks probably more than it is in the renders. It's probably a little bit thinner van. And that was one of the things that we actually would prefer not to have, but was kind of a compromise between us and BMO. And that was approved by their board. So this design has already been approved internally by BMO, which I'm sure you can understand is not an easy task.
And is that going to be a different material, or is that going to be paint on the brick?
In this image, it's rendered as the same materiality as the entry, which would be a metal panel.
Okay.
Not just paint.
Okay. And I think that is all the questions I have for you, except Doug, on page 3 of your staff report. This is more of just a clerical issue that I don't want someone a long time from now to go back and make a correction. But architecture and building materials, it's listing 93 units, and I think it means 83 units. I just know some people will read these packets and might be confused at the difference in numbers, so if we can just fix that for the future.
Thank you. I think, and I'll clarify this certainly, but I think it's 83 plus 10 circa. But yes, I'll definitely break that out once we have the final count.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect, thanks.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Brian. Brenda?
I have no additional comments. I think it's an attractive building, thoughtfully approached. Looks great.
Great. Susan?
Yeah, I really have nothing additional. Either I had also noted the shed, that we would need to know what the materials are, just to know what that's going to look like, because looks like it will be visible. And I actually, particularly if the returns on the windows are narrower, I kind of like the blue breaking up the gray. I think it's attractive. I really appreciate that plan, like that you did that. And I guess the comment about the parking that was raised, we certainly had a lot of discussion about that. And I think we kind of came to the view that we didn't expect that necessarily all of those parking stalls that are being provided would really be used, and that if there was too much pressure in the area, we do have that Plan B, which we hope we don't have to implement, but there is a way. It would mean removing the garden and that whole thing to create more parking on the lot itself, which we hope not to do, but we certainly had a lot of discussion and are aware of that. That's all. Otherwise, yeah, it looks so much better. Looks good.
Thank you. Chris?
Okay, before I start, I hope it's okay if I ask, we have a lot of public here tonight. We usually don't get anybody, and I was anxious for the public comment and everything. Is everybody here for the last item on St. Teresa? No, you're just here to hear about this one. Okay, I hope we'd hear a little bit. We get so few visitors. It's just, this is really exciting. Okay, so I'll start. I assume the reason you're here tonight is really BMO, because you need your anchor tenant to move ahead, and I think that's why you came back tonight, and I think it looks good. I agree with Susan. I like that return on all the windows. What it does is we always talk about getting commercial space on Monona Drive and making sure we get some, and this really identifies it as commercial space, and that's something different. And I like that because we struggle to get commercial on there, and I expect somebody as substantial as BMO wants some corporate look, and this, for those of you that haven't been here before, it was gaudy. It was gaudy, and it didn't scream Monona. It's just not the way we do things here. So I think this looks good while it still sticks out, and you can tell that it's a commercial project, and I agree. I think the blue breaks up all that gray a little bit. And these colors aren't exact, too. When you see them on there, they'll come back with a full palette, and we'll get to see the real samples. This is the best a printer can do, because a printer can't always get the exact color and translate it on there. So that's what that's about. As far as the person that had the public comment, I agree with Susan. We've really scoured the parking. Compared to most communities, we require a little more, don't we? Next applicant. And we do that because we want to make sure that not just the residents and the businesses can park, we want to make sure that the public comes to visit the residents and the businesses can park, and that's one of the big things, is there enough parking for that? So in our ratios, we have public parking for visitors for the units, for visitors, for everything included in there, because I know this is a tough area. I know Gordon's a tough area for parking, and if I lived there, it'd be a big concern for mine too. All I can say is we've hit virtually all our numbers. I say virtually, I think we're down
6 or 7.
6, but if they eliminate those 2 units, we might be down 2, but we've got commercial identities in there that share some parking with the apartments, so we're at a place where we're pretty comfortable this should work. You don't build a place for Christmas. Don't call me a liar when on Christmas people come to visit and there might be some overflow somewhere, but usually businesses aren't open on Christmas. So other than holidays, I think we're pretty good on parking, but we do take it very seriously. The electrical, I like your fixtures. I like them. I like what you've done. I think Rob had a really astute comment just to make sure there's security, but I like it, and I couldn't believe all the bollards you're putting in, but I think it's great as long as we have the security there. Shed, absolutely right. We have to see architecturals on that, and we have to see something compatible with what's being built there. So don't show us a picture of, no offense to Menards, but a Menard shed going in there. It wouldn't fit with everything else you're doing. Landscaping, couple comments. We've talked about this since you were here the first time, and this is a very visible corner. So we take a lot of, look for more than the minimums. I know Doug keeps talking about this is the minimum with those parking stalls. He doesn't say this. This is what's required with the parking stalls. What that is the minimum. This is a really visible corner. I like the landscape plan, but we're still going to need to see those points. And the one thing I would add there, I was a little surprised Rob didn't mention it, but I think there should be terrace trees on Gordon. All our other streets have terrace trees, and I think it would be appropriate to have some there. I don't know, Rob, what do we put them usually? 50 to 75 feet apart, terrace trees?
Yeah, depending if there's lighting too.
Lighting the species, but it's not that many trees, but I think there should be something between the sidewalk and the curb there. I just think that's part of a neighborhood. I like what you've done with your lower stuff. It really helps the neighbors. It screens headlights. It kind of keeps some of those uses separately, although I believe the townhomes help screen a lot of that too. But I think what you put in there is good for the neighborhood. I just think terrace trees are important, so I would take a look at that.
Yeah, we can add that, Chris.
Yeah. The other thing to remember, I know I'm giving you 2 mixed messages. Points I would expect to exceed a minimum on this corner, but also our point system doesn't allow for grasses and a lot of perennials and stuff, and we as a commission have always given some weight to those. And I see a lot of what you're putting in there are the grasses and perennials, and I think they add a lot of value. So don't think because we don't give points, we don't give that consideration. It does. It gives a ground level attractiveness, which I think is important for your project. I think it's important for the neighborhood. So, is that a pretty good mixed message?
Yeah, so keep our design the same.
I don't think that was exactly what I said. Other than that, I think, yes?
We didn't, we can add terrace trees. I wasn't clear whether that was the city's purview or ours. So, but when you have a chance, I lost my connection partway through Rob's comments after you were talking about the large size of compass plants. So just wanted to let you know I'd like to hear those at some point.
The good news is this is on YouTube. You can go pick it up anytime. The whole thing's recorded.
Yeah. Right. Thank you.
As far as the terrace trees, that's something we ask for when they aren't there. We could put them in and then we charge you for them. I think you just assume plant it with what you do and have it integrate into some of your landscape plans.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll have that sidewalk fenced off anyways, so that'll be easy to redo.
Okay. That's it. I think the modifications you've come back with are nice, and still there will be some final plans for PIP, and I would encourage all neighbors to stop in and take a look. If nothing else, you'll learn about what's going on in your neighborhood. It's good information to have. And certainly if you have a specific concern, when the PIP comes in, go
You
up front,
fill out a
and we
form.
like to hear what you're thinking. And usually we let the applicants give their presentation first, and then that way you know what they're presenting, and then you can come up and say, yeah, I like all this, but have you thought about that? We can't change a lot because they haven't approved GDP. So if they bring in a project that's basically what we've approved in the GDP, we can't say, well, no, we've decided we don't want to let you put apartments there, because they already have that approval. But the PIP, these are all acronyms. It's precise implementation plan. So what it says, it's all the details. You know, the devil's in the details, and you can ask anybody that's had to appear in front of us. We like details. So they'll all be presented in the final plans, and it'll be online. Everybody complains they don't get it quick enough. You know what? It has to be submitted 2 weeks ahead. From there, it has to go to our consultants. Then staff has to get it and put together a staff report. And usually on Thursday night, if we're lucky, sometimes Friday, we get the packet. So it gets posted online about the same time we get it. So when it's posted only 3-4 days before the hearing, that's why. Because to give the applicants a reasonable turnaround, it takes that long. But the packet will be online, Doug, probably Thursday, Friday at the latest, and it'll have all the plans and all the details you want to see. It's still a lot better in person. This is better than on Zoom for sure. So we sure welcome you to come back, and if you have any concerns, don't be afraid to speak up. We're not dangerous.
How can we see the hard copies?
The hard copies, we can't ask an applicant to print 100 copies, but Doug will always have them at City Hall, and he can always share some with you there. But he doesn't have enough to hand out to everybody, but it is online. So if I were you and you want to see the hard copies, I would give Doug a call on Friday, the Friday before the meeting. I mean, if they come back it'll be posted. I don't know when they plan on coming back, and Doug may know, but it allows at least time for you to see it, and you're always welcome to come to this meeting. We love seeing people here.
That's right, Chris. I'll always have, and there should be one in the room, a spare copy. And so folks are welcome to stop by anytime during office hours, City Hall hours. They'll be able to take a look at that. And it will definitely be at the meeting as well. If they want to stop by a little early, they can take a look. Absolutely.
Yeah, there is a spare copy up here, but a hard copy, I just didn't realize that that you were looking for that. So.
I didn't know that I wasn't there. I didn't realize that it was possible.
Right.
And I kind of like hard copies. I guess I'm old school.
Sure. We do too. And in fact, if you were to go back and look at any other meetings, one of the reasons why we were thanking Neutral Project tonight was because sometimes we get a lot of small documents and we can't read it because we need bigger typeface, and so we were just expressing gratitude that they gave us bigger bigger drawings and bigger information tonight, so that it's easier for us to pick through it, like Rob did with the landscaping, which is the bigger part of it. So. But it's always, as Chris said, it's always online, and you can always look at a hard copy before. So I have anything else from Rob?
I was just looking at the lighting plan, and just a couple of clarifying questions and maybe a suggestion. With the bollards being one directional in that island, that medium between the drive aisle and the southeast parking lot area, are those directed into the parking lot, or are they directed into the roadway?
That's a good question. I didn't bring the lighting plan with me, so I have to.
I don't know if
the foot candle.
Is that a one directional, or does that just cast one direction, or is there a fixture on the backside of that as well?
It is one directional.
Okay. In an incident like that, I don't know if there's a light fixture in that family that goes both ways, but in that location, it would make sense to have
alternate.
Well, maybe not alternating, but I don't know if you need it in that drive aisle. But that was one question. And then I started looking. If I look at this long enough, I'll just keep finding stuff. But on the north to south sidewalk next to the parking in that main core area, there is a row of bollards, and they're located in the sidewalk itself. And it looks like wherever possible, in other locations. They're located in the landscape bed for maintenance issues, I would imagine, but if you flip it over, then you get some splash into the parking lot, and they're out of the way for snow plowing, and they'll stand up a lot better, and they won't get banged around as much, if that works with the landscape plan and everything, so just a consideration.
Thank you.
And then, are the post-mounted ones, sorry, another one, are those going to be on raised bases?
Yeah, they'll probably be at 18 feet high. With
18-foot pole with a 3-foot base? Or?
Yeah, well, a 15-foot pole with a 3-foot.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
If I could, I'm sorry, but I was going to piggyback on Rob's comments. I didn't mention it, but when I first looked at the electrical photogrammetry or photometrics, I was shocked how low your light levels are through some of the main drives. I mean, we're looking at below 1 on a lot of it, up to 1. I mean, these are really, really low light levels. So I think Rob's comment is a good one, that you want to make sure you have enough lighting here so people can get about there safely. I understand we don't want anything spilling, and the neighborhood will be happy to see there's 0.1s and 0.3s spilling to the curb line across from you, so it's not a lot of light. But I'm not sure your main drive in some of those areas are really well lit. So I agree, it's something to take a look at. We're usually looking at making sure you're not lighting it too much and you're creating glare or something from the neighborhood. In this case, I think you're right. I think it's a little low.
Yeah, I would just re-examine it and see.
Any other comments? I would just add my gratitude for being able to negotiate successfully with BMO. I'm sure you're happy about that too. It looks much better, much better than the previous. And I for some reason in the landscaping plan I was looking for Norway spruce. Did I miss something?
I was
only kidding. Only kidding.
I was fighting for it, but the team decided to veto the decision.
No, I think it looks great, and again, appreciate it. Do you guys have any further questions for us? Do you understand? I mean, do you feel like you got the direction you needed for the PAP from us tonight?
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is great. Thank you for all the comments, and we'll take this back and continue with our design. Okay. We're not sure when we're going to come back. We're deciding if we're going to wait until the end of DB or come back maybe towards the middle, but it will likely be sometime in late March or April. We'll let Doug know when we have the definitive date, and then I'm sure he'll let all the commission members know. But thank you for having us, and we look forward to seeing you guys again.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks.
With that, we're going to move to item number 6C. Thank you all for coming. You can stay through the rest of the meeting too if you want. But if you are leaving, thank you for coming.
6C.
Sorry, 6C is a public hearing on the request by Walter Wayne Development for consideration of the zoning permit for a residential building with ground floor retail at 5105 Monona Drive, case number 2-020-2022.
Do you have the extra copy if they wanted to view it?
Sure.
If you want to view it, we do have the copy up here.
Hang on. welcome. Welcome back.
Great to be back.
So the floor is yours. Go ahead if you could walk us through where we are.
Alder Moore, thank you for having us back. My name is Dave Diamond, head grunt at Walter Wayne. I'm filling in for Randy Christensen, who's been with you the last 2 times in doing the presentations. And I brought with me tonight Robert Proctor, one of the owners of the development, and Mark Gott and Troy Jacoby of JLA Architects are online up here. So they'll be taking you through the project. We were asked to come back and do some improvements to density, which we've done, over 25% reduction, and soften the elevations and the aesthetics, improve our landscaping, along with some of the amenities, and address visitor parking and how we would handle that. And so we have done our best to accommodate all those items. Chris, the guest parking is something I still struggle with, to make it safe for the occupants of the building and yet public enough for the guests to visit, and how we separate that. And we've asked the architects to look at that. I'm not telling you tonight we have a perfect solution yet. Sometimes that's a challenging thing. But the nice thing about your community is the ratios allow for the guest parking. We have the parking we need now. We just have to decide how we accommodate them. So you'll hear tonight if maybe Troy's got an idea on that, and since our discussions on it. But so what I'd like to do is turn this over to the architects, and we'll run you through the detail, and I'm obviously available for questions or comment as well. So Mark, congratulations tonight, and I see you're with us, but I'll turn it over to Troy.
Hi, thank you. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Yes, I just made you co-host.
All right, awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that. And share. All right, here we go. Hi, I'm Troy Jacoby from JLA Architects, and I'm here to walk you through our submittal package, and also highlight some of the changes that we've made per your recommendations. So obviously what you see up here is an aerial map, and I apologize if we're cycling a little bit. Hopefully it stops. In red is our site right off Winona Drive. Obviously I have great views of the golf course across the street. And surrounding our site are commercial uses. Commercial uses obviously to the north and south, and multifamily along Dorkin Avenue. Are you guys seeing things
that
going
screen was just
haywire?
white. The one before that worked, that one was pure white. So hopefully now it's black.
Now it's black. All right, well, let me try to reopen the file. See if we'll get through this together. And I apologize for not being able to be there tonight. In standard fashion, my wife was a little sick, got the COVID test, and I tested positive, so I appreciate you letting us present virtually. Indeed.
Hey Doug, can you hear me? This is Mark Ott.
Yes.
Worst case, I don't think our presentation package is really just the package we submitted to you guys.
Yeah.
So if Troy can't get it, worst case, I think if you have it, and he could just tell you when to scroll through.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm just pulling it up now. I can screen share.
Sure.
All right. Well, are you able to see my screen now?
No.
No, Mark? You're not?
Yeah, Doug's gonna pull it up.
on his computer, he can put it up, tell him when
Yeah,
to
he's
update
gonna,
it.
he's putting it
Yeah.
up.
That'd be fantastic.
You will see my screen now?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great.
And if you just want to scroll to the drawings, there you go.
There you go.
Just want to tell them when to advance.
Thanks, Mark. You're managing this project excellently.
Do what I can, right?
Yes. Yes. All right. Well, this first slide is really just to orientate you. I think we talked a little bit about the location right off Monona Drive. Obviously, our site's highlighted in red. Go to the next slide. The next slide is the survey of the site. And as you can see, it is a vacant site, so our proposed use would provide
Our scroller's got to keep
a new piece of architecture for Monona Drive. I know there's very few vacant sites on Monona Drive, and so we're excited about this opportunity, and I think we have a good design, and a good design that holds that corner. Next slide. Here's our proposed site plan. You can see our building is kind of a U-shaped building. I'll just kind of walk you around all four sides of the building. Starting on the north side of the building facing St. Teresa Terrace, we have two entry drives into our lower level parking. We have 2 levels of parking, so the throat that is being highlighted right there, that's the lowest level there. And then as we work our way up, we have another entry level over on the right-hand side, and directly adjacent to that is our main entry to the building. Our street activation along Monona Drive to the east is activated with a raised terrace or patio space. And one of the comments about that Monona Drive facade was about landscaping and how the building meets the street, if you will. So when we start to look at some of the exterior renderings, you'll notice that we are proposing a planter that kind of nestles around that raised patio space. And directly inside of that raised patio space is a fitness area and also a business area that we'll talk about a little bit in the plans. Moving to the south facade, obviously the south facade faces an existing one-story building directly to the south. We are showing some enhanced landscape along that facade, and we also have some revised renderings that show you some improvements on that facade. And then moving to the west along Gordon Avenue, you can see that we've shifted the building from previous iterations, so there is a little more of a buffer on Gordon. So we're proposing some amenities in that buffer space. So we're proposing a dog run, and we're also proposing an outdoor patio space. Okay, you can go to the next slide. Then from a green space ratio, we're still maintaining 30% green space, and that's in the scheme. Landscape here, you can see it from I'm not a landscape designer, so I will touch on this lightly, but you can see from a landscape standpoint, we are addressing all 4 sides of this building with landscape, and our intent is obviously to meet the ordinance and as well as exceed the ordinance. So as I look through the letter, there was a mention about street trees along St. Teresa Terrace, so it's obviously something we can address as the plans evolve to the next stage, hopefully the next stage. Next. You can keep going. So lower level plan. So this, once again, this is our lowest level plan. Entry to that lowest level, right off the St. Teresa and Monona Drive. And as you enter that lower level, you can see we have kind of these. We have refuge, we have bike parking, we have direct access to a lot of the vertical circulations. So our thought process here about visitor parking is that this is probably not the right level for visitor parking. As we go through the deck, I think there's the next level up provides an opportunity where we could provide some sort of a vestibule, if you will. So if we're looking along the left-hand side of the screen, you can see an arrow saying ramp up for that indoor parking. We have some initial stalls right as you drive into the building, so our thought process here, if visitor parking is something that's mandated, what we would do is we would provide an additional set of security doors so that the visitor could come into this secured vestibule and then have access back out to the street and to the main door. Obviously, that is very initial thought. A lot of development needs to go into that, whether that's valid or not. But take that into consideration as you open up for additional questions. Then on this plan here, you can see some activation along St. Teresa. And these are our, with the fitness area and also the business center. Next slide, you can see our typical unit plans as they start to go up the facade. Our facade, our building does step, our massing of our building does step. We have these unique terraces that start to hold the corners and also become these focal points. So in this plan, you can see we have studios, 1 bedrooms, and 2 bedrooms. And then yellow, you can see the common circulation. Next slide. And moving up to the 3rd floor plan. Once again, very similar unit mix with the studios, 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms. And here you can see some of the wings of the building. The building was U-shaped. Now the building starts to become an L-shaped building because of the stepped massing. Next slide. And at the very top, we have our amenity space, the club room with the outdoor rooftop terrace that has the great views out towards the golf course. Exterior renderings. I'll walk you through some of the exterior renderings. And so this view is taken kind of on the other side of Monona Drive. So we are looking towards the southwest. And you can see how our facade addresses Monona Drive as well as St. Teresa Drive Terrace. And some of the changes we made here are start with the materials. And not so much of a change in materials, but more of a change in tone of materials. So we looked at materials that had a softer tone, richness to them. So you can see some red brick that obviously anchors the buildings. You can see kind of a soft dove gray metal panel that's accenting the windows, the spandrels under the windows, and as well as the balconies. And then we have a darker gray that kind of becomes the body of the building. And then also in this view, you'll see some of the moves we made to address the street with the planter directly below that raised terraced area. Thank you. And then we're also looked at enhancing the corner elements with corner glass. So you, right where it says signage, you can see that we're trying to make that corner glass bay an element, a vertical element, by framing it with that metal panel. Next slide. And here's an aerial view of that same view. And once again, it gives you a better sense of the massing of the building and also shows that planter that directly below that raised patio space on that 1st floor. Next slide, thank you. So here is the south facade, and one of the comments we heard about the south facade is that it is an important facade. It's a facade that's very visible. So what we look to do here is we really look to distinguish the corner of the building. So from a massing standpoint, we distinguish the corner of the building by stepping and creating that rooftop terrace. And from a material standpoint, we're trying to accentuate that corner by making a demarcation between, I guess what I call it, the head of the building and the body of the building. So we're really trying to make that corner an element, and you can see that dark gray material slides down and becomes a gasket between the two. And we also looked at introducing corner glass again. So at that 1st floor, you can see that there is a corner glass element, and we also looked at enhancing the landscaping at the base of the building. And once again, this is a nice aerial shot explaining the massing of the building and also the piece and parts we just described. Moving to Gordon Avenue, here you can see the backside of the building. And once again, we're looking at ways to activate that additional buffer space because of the shift in the building. And so you can see there's even a little dog out there that's supposed to be our enhanced dog run area as well as outdoor patio space. And once again, from a material standpoint, we are carrying those same materials that existed on Monona Drive all the way across our building and onto Gordon. So it's a 4-sided architecture. There's no real backside of the building per se. And lastly, we're ending here once again on the west elevation, keeping those themes alive of enhancing corners. So once again, you can see that corner glass element reappears on this facade as an element to hold the corner and also provide some visual interest. And once again, here you can see the dog run area and that outdoor patio space. One more. Yeah, this is the last. This completes our presentation. So this is the last rendering we have. Once again, just a nice aerial rendering to show how the building addresses the street, and also how the elements of our building start to complement the surrounding areas. All right, thank you.
Thank you. So with that, we will, anybody here again speak in the public hearing for this? No. So we will close the public hearing portion and go to item number 6D, pre-hearing conference on a request for Walter Wayne Development for consideration of a zoning permit for a residential building with a ground floor retail, consideration of a zoning permit. Sorry, ground floor retail at 5105 Monona Drive, case number 2-020-2022. Doug?
Thank you. So as mentioned, this is the pre-hearing conference on the zoning permit request. The request put forward is to construct 45 market rate residential units with 63 stalls of covered parking on a 0.53 acre site, bound by St. Teresa to the north, Monona Drive to the east, Gordon Avenue to the west, and commercial space, the Food Fight Restaurant Group offices to the south. This is the third time the application has come before the Commission. Other pre-hearing conferences have been held in late August of last year and late November as well. And each time the design has evolved and with improvements that have been made. The purpose of this meeting was really to provide sort of an interim check-in for the applicant with some incremental changes proposed based on previous feedback in advance of a possible formal consideration. In terms of the land use and the zoning, it is currently located within a retail business district, which would not allow, with the current unit mix, for that purpose to proceed. Later in the agenda, there is a possible rezoning request that is being considered. As part of the site design here, the applicant has already mentioned that the site exceeds the standards for green space, green and open space for the site, with 30.6% green space. Changes since the last hearing would be the addition of the patio, the dog run, and pedestrian access along Gordon Avenue. Additionally, a landscaping plan was included. Again, as with the previous application, that should include a points total moving forward, just so that reference can be made based upon the number of parking stalls. But the Commission can certainly give some feedback on general layout, as well as trees that are proposed. The applicant has included some site civil work, which has allowed for exact distances and measurements to be included for the setbacks. And so they are included, and they're shown. It doesn't appear that the setbacks have changed, but there are now concrete values that can be attributed to those. One of the main pieces of discussion was the change in the materials, as the applicant has already run through. The colors have been changed, and the Commission should definitely clarify if the proposed materials, as adjusted, kind of align with their vision for the property. And certainly some changes here have been incorporated the banding and the mixed materials along the building's south facade. And as mentioned, that there is not really a back of the building. This is a four-sided building, each with its own design elements. And certainly, again, with this being located along Monona Drive, it is subject to the urban design guidelines of that document as well. As mentioned, the landscaping plan is included, including a total of 15 trees, 4 of which are canopy, 3 are evergreen, and 8 are understory trees. Again, the Commission may choose to give some feedback on that. Based on the number of parking stalls, you would typically expect 5 canopy trees, so possibly increasing the count there, and also how they may be distributed across the site, just something else to discuss. Again, with the proximity to some of the outdoor recreation space, particularly along Gordon Avenue. Additionally, with the landscaping, there have been some design elements included with the retail facade that is included along the drive, and sort of the interaction there with the pedestrian scale of that, while also maintaining that as being a sort of an interior space to the building, with the possibility of that opening up in the future. And with that, I have no further comments. That's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm going to start down this end. Chris?
Okay, thanks. I guess I have no particular order, so I'll just do it the way I got it written down here, sorry. I think the landscaping, enhanced landscaping looks good, but I would have you look at terrace trees. Again, I think Gordon, it doesn't show any, and that would be a common thing. As far as the rest of the landscaping, I'll leave that for Rob. He's much more of an expert, but I like enhanced landscaping. It makes a difference, especially at a pedestrian level. Speaking at a pedestrian level, I'm going to jump opposite to my notes, but I love the way you solved Monona Drive. Used to just be that slope kind of up there. It looked like the building just kind of rose out of the ground. By having the planter and then the brick on it behind it, beautiful. I think you've done a great job of solving that and really enhanced the curb appeal of your building, which should help you in the long run.
Yeah, it was nice getting that staircase out of there.
Yeah,
that really was not right.
You don't need it.
It wasn't needed.
We're going to talk about it later, and our proposal is to zone the CDD so that sometime perhaps you don't have the office there and you have a coffee shop or something that allows you to make that change. And that's why we're doing CDD, but we understand right now it's not. And at that point in time where the coffee shop came back, maybe we would ask for access then to the sidewalk along Monona Drive. But it allows, I mean, I think it's hard when you don't see it in 3D, but this thing in 3D would have been unattractive with that. I'm sorry, I don't know how to put it lightly, without that, the way it was drawn before. And this is the exact opposite. It really highlights it, and I think for your residents sitting out on that patio, elevated from the street a little bit, it's nice for them too. So I think you've made a huge difference there. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about visitor parking.
Yeah, I knew we were going to talk about that.
We need access, and since the neighbors from the other project are still staying here, I'm going to give a little bigger explanation for our parking. A lot of people, including this developer, came in and said, no, we're developing with lower numbers now, we don't need them, we found we don't need them. And we agree with that in downtown Madison, that you don't need quite as much parking where there's so much walkability. But we had a project, I'm sure you're all aware of the Current, and the developer came in and said, no, new parking standards, we don't need it, we don't need it. We said, we're not sure about that. We'll have some spare parking here for now. I said, yeah, we won't need it. And then they built phase 2, and the same thing happened. Well, we don't need it, we don't need it. We said, well, we're not sure about that, so let's see what's going to happen. And any of you that have been around that place know it's hard to find parking sometimes around there. So fortunately, the CDA was able to get involved and the city got involved, and when that parking ramp under the last building was built, it was built with additional public space. And it was because we saw the writing on the wall and what's happening there. And as this developer comes and says, well, we're not putting in a Buck and Honeys. Well, I know that, but there's a lot of activity down there, and all our standards said, and we have standards for Buck and Honeys, all our standards said, yeah, we need this parking. And so we're a little gun shy when, and I believe the developer's sincere when he says we don't put this much in other places, and I believe him, but we're a little gun shy because I don't want to say we're a bedroom community. We're almost part of Madison, but we don't have all the same walkability. We don't have all the same things that are happening. And he's right when they said eventually it might be on a major bus transit line and major area where people can take a bus more, and they probably will. But we feel almost everybody in here will still at least have a car in the basement, and they will still have visitors coming. And so that's why we require the ratios we do. And you're on the other end of Gordon, but if you know what the other end of Gordon's like, this end's just as bad. Excuse me. When I went by today, there were 2 cars parked where a sign for no parking, and one was blocking your driveway. So, excuse me, there's clearly a parking issue on this end of Gordon too. So as a commission, we're very sensitive about parking, and we don't want to put in a new project that's going to create a parking issue for the existing residents. So that's why you'll hear me harping. And on this one, all the parking is taken care of in the building. We just want to know, how is that visitor going to get into the parking? Because they have a very valid concern about security. You don't want the general public just running in there and have access to where cars and bikes and other things are stored. but at the same token, there has to be a vehicle, some way to get your visitors down in there and into that parking. So that's the battle they're facing, and they're going to come back to us with some fabulous solutions, I have no doubt. But that's what you hear about this parking, give or take. Now I'm going to go back into my writing. Yeah, I like everything you've done. I still think the south elevation is plain. And I don't intend to be your architect, but what helps all the other elevations is we have these vertical elements of the red brick. I know it's not red, but we know what we're talking about. And it seems to me on this elevation, just like maybe this one spot of the light gray, if there was a vertical element of that just kind of counters the gray coming down, we'd have one more vertical. Because when you look at these elevations, all the other ones, I don't have to show them to you, you know them, but there's always one or two of those. And on this elevation, it's just, this vertical is way over there, and there's none here. There's just no vertical. And that, it seems to me, for my eye, and I'll be happy to hear what other commissioners think, that pulling that red brick up into the building helps just give it a little distinction. And on this, I wouldn't get rid of the gray that you've done that, but this one, it would still be very visible from Monona Drive, and I think it would accent your building, and I'll leave it to others to see what they think. But that's kind of the thing I was talking about before, is just something that helps us not just be all gray. And I know we've already talked about, we've got all great red brick at anything ground level, anybody can see, and it really pulls it off and accents it. But to me, that one little piece up there would really maybe help. Doug had asked us to talk about what zoning, and I know it's a future agenda item, but since he asked us, obviously I'm still in favor of the CDD zoning for the reason I already stated. You have the ability to change that commercial private area into what you need there. He asked about the unit mix. I like your unit mix, and that's all I have. I think you've done a nice job of responding to all the comments from before. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. We much appreciate the comments. I think it is a much better project as it stands.
Next, Susan. Right. Yeah, I also think a huge improvement. It's really a very attractive project. And while I'm not as concerned about the south end, because I do think it's attractive, I do always think if you could find a place for a canopy tree there even, that would help. I mean, look, the brick idea is good. That hadn't occurred to me, but think about that. But there might be a way in there to put another canopy, although I was also thinking of one more on the Gordon Avenue part. So, but again, if you do terrace trees, something more along there could help. But given that there's that other building so close and you have those evergreens, I think you're fairly limited with what you can do. And then, so as far as pedestrian traffic into the building, I mean, you've got an entrance on St. Teresa Terrace, I assume is where, so if there were visitors parking elsewhere, they would walk and go in that way, I assume, as far as circulation. I don't think I really have anything else. I think, you show 2 to 3 extra stalls, but I don't know if there's a way to have an interior section. I mean, you're pretty limited with those, where you're just for a few stalls where you could have visitor parking. That is hard, but as Chris said, we'll leave that to you if there's any way to do that. But I think the assumption was some of the guest parking would be outside of it, again, which, yeah. So yeah, I don't think I have anything else. I just think it's greatly improved, and I appreciate the additional setback on Gordon. I think you really responded to a lot of the comments that were made. So,
thank you.
All right. I'd also say that I would say this building's a significant improvement over the prior building. All things with design are subjective, so please hear that in this spirit. I actually like the south side, relative to what it was before. The one thing in general that was true about it before is still, I'm not a big fan of the balconies with the way that they're tied back to the structure. I personally would prefer something that was a cleaner, especially with a lot of the other themes that you have. It's a lot of orthogonal, elements that you've got, so that the diagonal of the way those are tied back. I understand that for the product that it is, you're able to install it last. So I understand why you're doing it from a constructability perspective. It would be my preference to see something that's more of a cantilevered approach, maybe post-tensioning in the concrete or something along those lines. The side that stands out to me is actually the west side of the building. So first I want to acknowledge the corner glazing. I think that in terms of having it have sort of an updated look as a structure, part of the issue previously is that south side already looked like a dated building, but the corner glazing, I think, does a really nice job on each of the sides of the building. While everybody else, has been making their comments known, this west side, the three elevations of the brick, and I think it's that it doesn't represent all the themes that you have going on with the building. And so I was just thinking on some different ideas of how that might be able to come forward. And you talked about the head of the building and then the body of the building, but I think that maybe there's one of those elements, that massing element that you have at the head of the building, where you've got this sort of protrusion, the way that you've done that massing on the very front of the building. Even if it was a more subtle element, and it was at the very top elevation of the building, almost as though it were a sunshade, but running around as like a ribbon, but it tied in, some of the themes you had present on other parts of the building. It just, it's not that it's not attractive. It's attractive, but it stands out to me because it doesn't seem like totally tied in with all the other themes that are present. And maybe it's because we're looking at it, at a 45-degree angle to the building versus just at the elevation view, because, right to the southern end of the western wall, you do have those other themes there. When looking at, I'm not the landscaping expert, but, when we're looking at the plan view of the landscaping on the north side, in the plan view, your sheet, this plan view sheet, it looks like there's some taller species that are, being put in that area, and I really liked what I thought I saw here in the plan view, but in the render, it doesn't look like it has, and that might just be because of the render. I would totally grant that. So all I would say that seems important is that with the way that this building is situated, having like a very kind of a flagship feature, kind of the quality of the display and I think that's a really nice little nested area that I liked what I was seeing here in the plan view, and that might be more representative of what it would actually be in the end than perhaps what's been flattened out in the render. But I wanted to thank you guys for the creative work that you did in terms of the direction that the building took. Also in the plan views of the space itself, looks like you incorporated some updated ideas in that kind of main conference room area. So that was nice to see. In general, I really appreciate all of the things that you did incorporate. It is a little bit of a riddle. So, good work.
Thank you.
I would agree with my colleagues here that the building looks tremendously better than it has. Some of the key changes, the Manila Drive change, I think, is probably the biggest change that makes the biggest dent in some of our previous comments. I like how the west side of the building now is at least being, I think, part of the programming. I think it becomes an active space rather than, hey, we have to have a setback and just mow some grass. And so I think having some way to be able to engage that piece of the property, I think, is helpful. I agree with the comment regarding that elevation, although it might be the rendering itself. It does. Normally, we're not the ones to say there seems to be too much brick, but it does have the sense of, because there's not as many balconies on that backside, the far west side, it does give a different feel of this seems like almost an office building, straight brick, in comparison to all of the other corners that have much more of the whole thematic piece kind of throughout that whole element. So, not sure what possibilities might exist on that corner. Let me peek at the rest of my notes here. The south side of the building, so on the southeast side of the building, I think that's the element of the vertical piece that I think, Chris, you were talking about, that same side. And I think that's going to be the most viewable spot, especially from the drive. And so if there can be some element to tie vertically, I have that marked down as well. That's nothing changed. I'll save landscaping for Rob. So that was it.
Very good, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, this is the fourth time I think we've seen this come to commission since I've been on Plan Commission. Once with a different team, and seeing that first attempt to where we are now is like, I didn't think we'd get this far. So it's impressive. So kudos to the team for putting this together. I think it's come a long ways, and I think the building's very attractive. I don't have a whole lot of comments on the building. The topic of conversation being that southeast corner. I think it's good. I think the tall vertical windows add a lot. I think one thing you could do is maybe bring some evergreen along that southern border a little closer to that entrance door. Because there's only 3 arborvitae that you have there now, which is fine, but I think bringing that forward will give you kind of a vertical element that'll be there and provide contrast all season long. That square spot of landscaping, I'm moving to the landscaping plan now, on the north side of the building is kind of in plan view. I get too hung up on looking at things from plan view because it's what I do all day, every day. And I think that's fine as a landscape bed right there. Looking at the species and that whole northern edge there, I like the plant selections, especially up towards the buildings and that kind of wave pattern. It looks like you're trying to create kind of a woodland understory mix, which I think works. But up in that little square area, maybe take a look at that, just because I know there's going to be some salt runoff and some abuse from snow removal, and those are kind of more delicate species, I'm pretty sure, especially like the trillium, and those probably won't do so well, which leads me to the terrace trees right there, or sugar maples, historically not so good with salt tolerance as well. So maybe look at alternatives for that potentially. Going back to the where are we at here? The west side of the building, kind of the northwest side of the building. You have a kind of a landscape bed there with a smattering of some ornamental sized trees, which I think is good. I think there's some room for a canopy tree there to kind of anchor that wash of brick. Well, this is unrelated. I'll come back to that one. Okay. I just had another question, unrelated. Just looking at the survey on the first sheet, there's the 10-foot right-of-way grant, underground electrical. What is that?
On which side?
It's running through the middle of the site and then goes.
That's being released.
That's being released.
Yes.
Okay.
So
what about the east west? Both of them?
It's being released to the edge of the building. So we basically took the building and the whole site, set that over to MG&E, and they're preparing the release right now. They're releasing the one through the middle, and then it's going to run along St. Teresa, I believe, like right along the side. There's a part where the building hooks up, but we can send it to you.
If you got to figure it out.
Yep.
That's
good
enough for me.
Figured out before we closed.
Okay.
Can't tell.
I think that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you.
I agree. It looks great. I like the design changes. I like the colors. I am not as worried about the south side. I think, putting a taller tree there might help. But I don't know if I'm looking at this wrong, but it looks like there's a sidewalk on the southeast corner. But then when I look at the render, I'm not seeing the sidewalk there. So when I look at
There is a side, yeah, there is a sidewalk on the south side going kind of, the southeast corner that goes out to Monona Drive. It's, it's basically an emergency egress. It's the spare door.
Okay.
Tenants would be able to get in through there. It's not a public door. But yeah, there was a little walk there. Probably, it might not show up in the rendering.
Okay, it does not. So, there'll be a door on that base too, so that might help just break up the brick a little bit. I think it looks great. I'm really pleased to see what you did along Gordon Avenue, because now it's a space that the tenants will actually use. I am wondering about, I like the comment about maybe putting in a canopy tree, because I'm thinking about if I were sitting on the patio there that's facing south, it's going to bake. It's going to be so hot. So you might want to even think about flip-flopping the dog run in the patio and just having a space that might be a little bit shaded there, or put a tree so the dogs have shade. They're going to be on the tree. I don't know. But I like that a lot. I did have one question just about the inside. With the roof terraces, there's some of them that don't have the public access to them, or the inside tenant access to them. So are those specific for one apartment? Like on the third floor, the roof terrace, it looks like it's only accessible by that 1 2-bedroom apartment?
Yeah. So there's a few that get those really nice roof patios.
Okay.
It's just the way the architecture works on the outside to step it back, and then they just get really lucky that they get really big patios. And the question will be, as we continue to refine the project, will that just be one giant roof patio that they get the program, or will we put some, potential green areas in there, on that roof to reduce kind of their area, but add value as well. So, but yeah, those are private.
Okay. Yeah, that was a comment. I know the renders are you just take whatever, things that you can and plop them on there. But when you look at like the aerial view, they do look like a lot of blank space. So I was wondering what you were going to do. And I think if you can find a way to add in something, that might be nice. But, just it's kind of up to you on that. But I think it looks great.
I would concur with everyone here. I think this is a significant improvement, and really appreciate all the effort that's gone on with the team. I would also concur that to me that the northwest corner does look a little boxy to me. I agree with Brendan and Brian in terms of all that brick. And I also agree that with Chris, who started it anyway, that perhaps on the south side, if we could draw up some of that brick to break up the south side a little bit, because it just seems like pretty barren, even though I think it looks a lot better with the brick going all the way around, and the arborvitae that you've put there and some other things that you've done on the front, on the south side. It still looks just a little bit too sparse to me. Like you're definitely looking at a back of a building, and that's so visible from the Monona Drive. So those would be my only two things. Any other comments? Yeah, Chris.
Just, I agree with that patio getting hot, but I'm thinking that the canopy trees and the terrace for Gordon Avenue will provide a lot of shade for that. And it's usually as it starts getting to the west, so I think, I think those canopy trees will give you the shade you need on that patio.
So, do you all feel like you have gotten clear feedback from us. Is there any other questions you have for us?
Yeah, I'd defer to Mark or Troy to make sure, gentlemen, I've been taking notes, and I know you have too. Are there any other questions you have?
No, at least for me, I'd love to speak for myself. I feel that the design notes that we've got are very clear and very good, and a lot of those things we're already on the same page we're thinking about as well. So look forward to working on the revisions and bringing that part back to you in the next round of the process.
Okay. Great.
Agreed. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're not done.
No, you got one more.
That's right. Tried to get you out of here early.
Okay. We are, that takes us to 7C, public hearing on the rezoning request of map amendment, retail business district, Monona Municipal Code of Ordinances, section 48028, the community design district, Monona Municipal Code of Ordinances, section 480-30 at 5105 Monona Drive, is requested by Walter Wayne Development, case number 2-001-2023. It is a public hearing. The ball is in your court again to say whatever your team would like to say as part of the public hearing portion.
Yeah, I don't believe we have any coming this time.
Okay. Then we will close the public hearing and go to number D, which is, or letter D, which is consideration of action for approval and recommendation to the City Council for approval of a rezoning request and map amendment from retail business district, Monona Municipal Code of Ordinances, section 48028 to community design district, Monona Municipal Code of Ordinances, section 48030 at 5105 Monona Drive, as requested by Walter Wayne Development, case number 2-001-2023. Doug?
Thank you very much. So, as requested, the applicant is going forward for a rezoning and map amendment at 5105 Monona Drive. The parcel is just over half an acre and is currently zoned retail business. It would need to be rezoned to a community design district for the proposed development to occur, while offering flexibility for future ground floor commercial space. Public notice was sent to adjacent property owners for formal consideration, as well as the Class 2 notice being placed in the newspaper of record. The project zoning has been discussed at all of the 3 pre-hearings, including this evening, as well as the August 22nd and November 28th meeting, where there was discussion and deliberation between multifamily or community design districts that were put forward. As proposed, the ancillary residential would not be appropriate for the proposed mix, but the community design district was favored for the possibility of future retail space along Monona Drive, the conversion of that if market forces allow in the future. The parcel is currently vacant and was previously occupied by a Jiffy Lube car maintenance business. The 2016 comp plan shows the parcel is vacant in the current land use map and commercial in the future land use map. The adjacent parcels to the north and south are both commercial in both maps, while parcels to the west are categorized as multifamily. Worth pointing out, though, 2 parcels north along Monona Drive is Fairway Glen, which is a 55-unit multifamily building with no commercial that was built in 2012. Additionally, the Commission, as part of the deliberation here for the zoning permits, has considered the possibility of a retail facade and sort of the flexibility that may bring down the line. As far as comprehensive plan elements here, the plan does encourage infill development on vacant parcels to maximize efficient use of public services and facilities, which this project, being one of the few vacant sites left in the city, would potentially be doing so. So with that, staff recommendation is recommendation of the rezoning to City Council. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. Chris, would you like to start?
Sure. There's really not much to say for the people in attendance. I think we all agree that this is a higher and better use than the Jiffy Lube, and that it was zoned for the Jiffy Lube. And with this zoning, the project you've seen, which we hope you like, is able to build here and still maintain flexibility. That's why the commission's entertaining this, and I think it should be recommended to the council.
Yeah, I would agree. I have no comments.
I agree as well. No additional comment.
Nothing.
No comments.
No comments.
Okay. Great. Do I have a motion?
It was just a. Oh, where's this one? Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
I was looking at the wrong one. Wasn't noticing that.
Yeah, I did the same thing
Do
when
I
I
have
was
a
reviewing
motion?
it.
Yeah.
I move we recommend the city council approve the new zoning as written by staff.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Multiple seconds. Okay, we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Now I can say thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Pardon?
Doug, how are you holding up?
Oh, did you at the beginning?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Rob's about to lose the bet.
I got 10 minutes on either side, so. Still win this.
Come, well, you can get that of us. Don't be afraid to come
Thank you.
back.
No.
Okay. That takes us, Chris is back in his seat. And so that takes us to reports of staff and commission members, staff report regarding status of development projects and proposals.
Thank you. So as far as economic development update, the CDA is going to be meeting tomorrow night, and there will be two projects that are coming forward sort of for a preliminary discussion, both of which came forward this evening. So the applicant we just heard from, 5105 Winona Drive, will be discussing a potential TIF ask, as will the White Horse project down at, on East Broadway. That one would be a combined request for both the private drive as well as the North Point project, the multifamily project that was previously approved as part of the GDP in late 2021. In terms of upcoming Plan Commission items, busy few meetings coming up. The next meeting, February 13th, I'm expecting the pre-hearing for 220 West Broadway, the dental clinic. Plans have been sort of getting fleshed out here, and they're on a pretty condensed timeline. So looking to work with them. Been a few items back and forth, but they're looking to come forward, incorporating certainly feedback from previous meetings. Couple considerations would be for some zoning permits, couple new businesses looking to open. One specifically would be along Gishalt Drive, a small retail use. And additionally, there's a residential CSM that is looking to come forward and go through that process over on Shore Acres as well. So that would be a pre-hearing at the next meeting and moving through Public Works and sort of the necessary bodies for review there. And finally, expecting the phase 2 commercial space for the Chipotle site over at the corner of Monona Drive and West Broadway. That's looking to come through with a building that very much mimics the existing Chipotle with some retail use there as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Let's see. Any updates, discussion on diversity, equity, inclusion?
Nothing from staff.
There's just the newly constituted implementation group for the DEIJ or DIB recommendations that were made, reported to the city, were made to the city. That group is meeting this week for the first time. It's been appointed by the mayor and meeting for the first time, so they're essentially overseeing and supporting and helping prioritize the recommendations that came out of that original DEIB report. Anything on sustainability, Doug?
Nothing from staff.
I would just ask Doug that and just mention to this committee that, you know, with the latest federal funding and coming on board for renewable energy, the percentages, return that you get if you put solar and EV stations and all that good stuff in are back up again in the best way. So I think we should really be, I mean, I know we've been encouraging developers to rough in, but I think, when we meet with developers, they may not know that it's gone, from back in the 20s to now back up again. So I think most people, if they're putting solar on, most bigger developments, if they put solar on, they'll get a return in like 8 years probably, between the cost, 8 to 10 years. With the tax rebates, it's definitely worth looking into, so I would just encourage people, maybe we can get some information or something to developers, because roughing out's great, but if they don't put panels on, it doesn't do us much good. Upcoming meetings on the 13th and 27th, you've already talked about. Plan commission requests, anything else requests for Doug? Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure everybody has had the full report on Doug's new baby.
That's
and
right.
how the baby and mom are
This
doing.
is
Maybe
true.
give us an update.
She's probably asleep, but tell us all about her.
I've been hearing noises upstairs, so maybe not. We welcomed our second little girl just before Christmas, December 23rd. So baby Juliet was born, and mother and baby both doing very well. So.
Yay.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And she's being well received by number one, yes?
She is, yes, very well.
Yeah, they're pretty attracted to each other. That's great. Okay. Well, thank you for that update. We'll expect pictures the next meeting that you come to. I'm just telling you. You got to take pictures.
On the record.
Yes.
I can do that.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, thank you. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you all.
You hit it right on the head.